Hi, my name's Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we're looking at Friday, a solo only deck building game where you're going to be upgrading your deck throughout and also pseudo hand management because you've only got a finite amount of cards to use on your turn and you need to use them the most efficiently to overcome the trials and hazards that you'll be facing. So you play as Friday, someone that is more than happy in their own company on their own desert island. Along comes Robinson Crusoe, who gets himself stranded on your piece of turf. And so you set yourself the objective to teach RC the skills he'll need to craft a means of transport and a means of getting off that island so you can get back to your own peace and quiet. So let's see how this plays and whether this could be the next game for you. So the object of the game is to survive 3 stages of the game, and each stage is going to have a bunch of hazards that you're going to overcome, and then you're going to fight 2 sets of pirates at the end of the game, which we'll see a little bit later. So you start with your 18 card Robinson deck, and this is your starter deck if you like, that's going to have only meager skills for you to use against the hazards that you come up against, but as we'll explain, you'll be overcoming hazards and gaining access to more powerful weapons and more powerful skills as you go through. So at the start of every turn you're going to draw the top 2 cards of the hazard deck, and all of these cards are in 2 halves if you like. So the top half you'll see the hazards and the bottom half is effectively the rewards you'll get if you overcome that particular hazard. So when you've drawn the 2, you're going to pick one of those and then discard the other, and the one you've picked is the one you're going to try and overcome. But we'll just keep these here to go through what the card anatomy looks like. So on the right hand side of these hazards are green, yellow and red numbers, and that depends on what stage you're at in the game. So the first stage is the green, and then you'll transition to the yellow and then ultimately the red, and they'll get harder each time because this number is a target number and it's the number you need to have in terms of fighting strength when you tackle that hazard. But before we can see what fighting strength we have, there's a number in the bottom left of this top half of this hazard if you like, and that's the number of cards you can draw from the Robinson Crusoe deck in order to try and bump up that fighting number. So let's just say we picked with the raft to the wreck hazard. This is going to give us 1 card to draw for free, and here you'll see we've drawn the distracted card, which gives us -1 fighting point. So all we needed to get was 0, but sadly we drew the worst card possible. So I mentioned this is a number of cards you can draw for free, because at that point after you can actually pay in life points to draw more cards. So you start the game with 20 life points, so we're going to need to pay 1 life to draw another. But sadly this weak card has not helped us get out of the mire and we're still stuck on -1. So we're going to spend 1 more life point to draw this focused action. And so finally we get back to the target number of 0 we need, but we've had to expend 3 cards in doing so. So once you use all these cards up, you'll place them in a discard pile and then take the hazard that you've beaten and place that in your discard pile as well. Because in future turns, when you've depleted your Robinson deck and you start drawing a new deck, you'll then use that as a reward. And here, the food, instead of giving us fighting power, is going to give us life back whenever we draw it. So you're going to rinse and repeat that process until the hazard deck is depleted. And it's at that point you'll take all of the hazards that haven't been taken as rewards and shuffle them into a new deck. But this time you'll also be transitioning to the next stage. And as we've already illustrated, that will make the hazards you continue to draw require a higher fighting total to defeat them. Similarly, whenever the Robinson deck is depleted, to represent the fact that you're aging, although you've been learning new skills and upgrading that deck, you'll also draw the topmost card of the aging deck and add it to that newly drawn deck. And you'll see they generally have negative effects. So when drawn here, the scared card will be worth a fighting total of 0, but will also mean the highest card you're using on that turn will also equal 0. There are others that give you straight up negative points, but as you can imagine, none of those aging cards give you a beneficial effect. So you'll continue through the 3 stages by depleting the hazard deck each time, and it's at that point you'll draw the 2 pirate cards that you drew during the setup. But to help you defeat those pirates, some of the rewards you'll get won't just give you base fighting strength, they'll also give you the ability to destroy other cards in your deck. And that means they'll be removed from the game, and that feeds into a core tenet of deck builders, in that you want to filter out the bad cards in your deck to increase the likelihood that you'll draw good cards. Others will allow you to sort the top card of your deck so you know what cards you're going to be drawing next, and so on. This just adds to the variety and the strategy on offer here. So once you're ready to encounter these 2 pirates, you're going to do so separately, but they act almost identically to the normal hazards you face throughout, in that they've got a hazard value where you need to have that amount of fighting points to defeat them, and it will also allow you to draw a number of free cards in order to do so. So you'll tackle both of these pirate cards separately, and then if you're able to overcome them both, then you win the game. So that's how this game plays. What did I think of it? So who is this for? Well, it's a light to medium weight game, but it really does belie its complexity in contrast to the challenge that it provides. This is an easy game to get to the table and to learn, but it's an absolutely challenging one. And that's even at the base level. You can ramp up that difficulty as much as you like. So if you really do like a challenge and a brain burner with an element of luck needed to overcome these challenges, then there might be something here for you. Perhaps you're a collector of all things days of the week, then, well, this is a no-brainer. So you might want to consider this if you liked Onirim, published by Z-Man Games, or Agent Decker, self-published by Manuel Correa. So there aren't necessarily all mechanical similarities between these 3 games, but there's definitely the same sort of solo challenge and vibe to them. In terms of gameplay, well, this is just a neat little deck builder. There's a lot going on here, but everything ties together quite nicely. It takes a little while to get to the table, but once it does, it flows very, very well, very, very quickly. There might be a little bit of monotony in your turns because you are just whizzing through things, but there's enough going on to keep you interested and to keep you engaged. So I never miss an opportunity as well to give props to components that have multi-functions. The fact that you've got the hazards on the top of the cards here and the rewards on the bottom is just a plus for me. You could have even had different decks for the 3 stages of the game, but all of those things and without the multifunctional cards would have taken away from what they've managed to cram in to a real travel size box here. This is one that you could take to a hotel or whatever and just get out and enjoy that solo experience. So as I've mentioned, things tied together nicely. They also evolve quite well from those 3 stages. You're starting early doors, tippy-toeing around the island, and thematically the cards and the hazard represent that because you've got the different difficulty levels. But you can push your luck. You can go for the throat and try and get those super heavy weapons early, and that's only going to help you as you transition to the mid and to the end game. So this game really does represent quite nicely the aging process as you go through all the stages. So once you exhaust that hazard deck, you're going to be adding aging cards in there, and the difficulty is going to ramp up. But the idea is that it does so in a natural transition to the way that you've upgraded your deck. So there's always just enough going on for you to feel really satisfied and give you that sense of progression throughout. So my only one grumble would probably be, it's not a grumble at all, it's a challenging game, no doubt. But even in the base level version of the game, there's probably a bit too big of a step from those 3 stages before you encounter the pirates. Yes, you know how much time you've got to upgrade your deck so that you've min-maxed it to its highest possible quality and standard, but then when you come up against the pirates, sometimes you're coming up a brick wall based on what you've managed to achieve in upgrading your skills and upgrading your deck throughout. So in terms of the look and feel and theme of the game, well, again, the art style is really, really spot on, and the way They've managed to cram everything in here. Production quality is of a good standard. I can't grumble at all. They've tried to add some fluff in wherever possible in the rule books, and this is a game where you're on your own. You can take the time to appreciate the theme in there as well. So I would say this is a highly thematic game, and I can't grumble about all of these parts of what is an overall wonderful package. So with all that being said, Dice vs Cards can give you a final score of 8 out of 10. If you like solo games, this is surely going to be a challenging treat for you. So that's it from me. I'll see you next time.
Friday. Old English for the Day of Frigga, named after the Germanic goddess Frigga, wife of the supreme god Odin and goddess of married love.